Lesson 7. What moves stock prices up or down? Part 1. Investors have many choices. Please read and pay attention to the disclaimer on this slide. One of the first things people want to know is what makes stocks move up or down. As it turns out, stocks tend to be influenced by 3 categories of events. The first category includes events big enough to significantly impact the direction of the overall stock market. The second category involves industry sector news and developments that impact many stocks in a particular sector, like software or banking. And finally, we have company-specific news. We're going to talk about all 3 categories in this lesson. Let's start with the direction of the stock market. To better understand its importance, think of the stock market as an ocean and stocks as ships sailing on it. When the ocean rises or falls, all the ships sailing on it rise or fall as well. In a similar manner, when the stock market rises or falls, most stocks move in the same direction up or down. Let's do an example of a stock market event. What if aliens from outer space attack Earth? The stock market would unsurprisingly crash. It wouldn't matter which stocks investors owned because they're all going down. While this is an unlikely event, the example highlights an important point. Big events lead to big changes in the market, which tend to impact most, if not all, stocks. On the other hand, small changes in the market tend not to have much impact on individual stocks. The 2020 COVID-related lockdown period was a great example of a stock market level event. The collapse in economic activity hit the stock market hard. Starting in late February, the market fell by an astounding 33% in just 1 month. Given the scale of the market collapse, there was nowhere to hide. Almost every stock went down dramatically. Let's shift from the direction of the stock market as a factor to industry sector performance. In the real estate market, they say it's all about the location. What matters most is which neighborhood you're in. In the stock market, the neighborhood matters too, but neighborhood means which industry sector a stock is in. For example, over the past 15 years, oil and gas stocks have been poor investments, while internet stocks produced amazing returns for investors. When an entire industry sector declines or rises sharply in the stock market, most stocks in that sector typically move in the same direction. Let me explain with another unlikely scenario. What if it turns out that dragons do exist and they hate airplanes? They make sure people don't fly planes anymore. All airline stocks would crash. It wouldn't matter which airline stock you owned because they're all going down. That's an example of industry sector news that could impact most stocks in a particular sector. Earlier, I said a great example of the importance of industry sector performance is a comparison of the oil and gas and the internet sectors. Oil and gas companies have been facing growing environmental and societal pressures, leading to a shift towards renewable energy sources and technologies aimed at reducing carbon footprints. As a result, the future outlook for the sector worsened over the past decade. In contrast, the internet sector driven by global digitization trends has been enjoying strong growth with a positive future outlook. Given the very different outlook for oil and gas companies and internet companies, it should come as no surprise that the stock performance of each sector has also been very different. Look at the chart on the slide which shows the relative performance of the oil and gas sector, the blue line, and the internet stock sector, the orange line. From 2014 to early 2024, the index of oil and gas stocks appreciated by only 3%. Only 3% over an entire decade. In contrast, the index of internet stocks rose 340%. Oil and gas stocks also dramatically underperformed the S&P 500 index, which many investors use as a measure of the broader stock market. That index, marked by the green line, rose 288% over the past decade. I hope this brings home the point that in the stock market, the industry sector a stock is in, its neighborhood, can matter a lot. Company-specific news tends to impact only a small group of stocks or even a single stock. It doesn't impact the broader stock market. Imagine a bouquet of roses. Something caused a single rose to die while the others bloom beautifully. Now think of news that greatly impacts a single stock but leaves the overall stock market unaffected. Let's discuss an example of company-specific news that would greatly impact only one company's stock price. What if, for some unknown reason, all of Nike's new shoes start melting when exposed to sunlight? People begin calling them vampire shoes. Nike's stock collapses. Other athletic shoe stocks would be unaffected. They might even benefit from the news. The stock market would also likely be unaffected. This news would only impact a single company, Nike. Remember the discussion of the 2015 E. coli scare at Chipotle Mexican Grill in Lesson 2, Part 2, and the risk of non-diversification when investing? The 2-year 60% decline in the company's stock price in response to news that their food were making customers sick was a real-life case study in company-specific risk. The news only hurt Chipotle's stock, not other restaurant stocks or the overall stock market. You should know that there are factors outside of the stock market that can also impact stock prices. The reason is that investors have many choices of where to invest their money across many different types of assets other than stocks like bonds, commodities, and cryptocurrencies. Because of all these choices, stocks compete for investor interest with other types of investments. That competition can have a big impact on the stock market. Let's discuss this competition dynamic further. Not all asset classes compete with stocks with the same intensity or time frame. Some asset classes are alternatives to stocks but over a much longer time frame. Look at real estate as an alternative to the stock market. You can't buy and sell a house multiple times during a single day, like you can with stocks. There's much more inertia involved getting in and out of a property. So short-term changes in real estate prices don't typically exert very much influence over the stock market. Other assets, like Bitcoin and gold, don't pay investors any income like stocks and bonds. Accordingly, what happens to their prices doesn't necessarily have any direct impact on stock prices beyond signaling a change in sentiment about the economy. This brings us to interest rates, which are determined by trading in the credit markets. Just to be clear, credit markets are where investors and borrowers trade debt instruments, like bonds. Unlike stocks, these instruments do not represent ownership in a company, but rather guarantee fixed payments for a specified period. Interest rates can act like the 800-pound gorilla in the room when it comes to the stock market, becoming the most important factor when it comes to determining the market's direction. Lower rates generally make borrowing cheaper, encouraging business investments and consumer spending, which can lift stock prices. Conversely, higher rates can increase borrowing costs, squeeze corporate profits, and slow down economic activity, leading to a decline in stock prices. Investors can easily switch their money from the stock market to the credit market and back, because both markets are very liquid. It is easy to buy and sell quickly in both markets. Accordingly, interest rates offered in the credit market compete directly for investors' money with stocks. The dynamic is like a tug of war between two giants. Let's discuss this competition further. In the easiest terms to understand, interest rates are the cost of borrowing money. They are the cost lenders charge to make loans to borrowers. The rate represents a percentage of the loan amount that is paid or received over a specific period, typically expressed annually. For example, an interest rate of 10% means that a lender would charge you $1,000 a year to borrow $10,000 for 5 years. Of course, at the end of the 5 years, you must pay back the $10,000. Remember this important point. When investors buy debt instruments, otherwise known as bonds or fixed income securities, they're acting like banks. They're lending money. Again, buying bonds is the same as lending money, like a bank. The long-term graph of interest rates on this slide is an important one. It demonstrates the powerful force interest rates have on the stock market. The graph also helps explain the stock market's performance over the past 60 years. We're going to go through it. Let's look at two contrasting periods, The turbulent 1970s, marked by the red arrow when soaring interest rates hurt the stock market, and the booming 1980s, marked by the green arrow when falling interest rates drove the market higher. The 1970s can best be described as the decade plagued by soaring inflation, largely because of the oil shocks during that period. It was the decade of long gas lines to fill up cars. To combat the high level of inflation, the Federal Reserve implemented aggressive interest rate hikes, culminating with the 10-year US Treasury bond yield rising to the mid-teens in 1981. The sharp rise in interest rates acted like a double whammy for stocks. Higher borrowing costs squeezed corporate profits, and the increased return on alternative investments, like bonds, lured investors away from stocks. The result was a lost decade in the 1970s for the stock market. The market basically did nothing for the period. The 1980s were the opposite of the 1970s. The 80s could be called the dawn of a golden age in the stock market because of falling interest rates. It was a period of doom to boom, as it became clear that the Federal Reserve finally tamed inflation in the early 1980s. The 10-year government bond yield peaked in 1981, right around the market bottom. After that, interest rates embarked on a multi-decade downward journey. Lower interest rates meant lower borrowing costs for companies and consumers. Economic growth accelerated and corporate profitability rose sharply. At the same time, falling interest rates made bonds less attractive versus stocks. The confluence of these two factors, lower interest rates and stronger economic growth, fueled a historic bull market, with the S&P 500 skyrocketing nearly sixfold between 1982 and 1995. Let me show you how interest rates compete with stocks. What would you rather invest in? An investment that pays you a 4.5% return per year, or an investment that pays you a 4% return per year, but that return grows 5% every year? The answer to this question determines the flow of trillions of dollars between the stock market and the bond market. It's a question that professional money managers grapple with every day. Even though the 4.5% yielding investment pays you more now, the 4% yielding investment, highlighted by the orange line, is growing. So, by the third year, the 4% investment will be yielding more than the 4.5% one. For that reason, most people would choose the 4% yielding one, growing 5% per year. This is not just a hypothetical example. Today, you can buy a 10-year US Treasury bond that will pay you 4.5% a year, every year for 10 years. Since US government bonds are considered to be relatively risk-free assets, it's about as close to a sure thing as you can get. Alternatively, the S&P 500 index is trading at a price-earnings ratio of 25, which means investors are paying $25 for every dollar of earnings for the index. To make the comparison with the Treasury yield easier, let's convert the price-earnings ratio into an earnings yield. To do that, we just flip the ratio so it's earnings divided by price instead of price by earnings. $1 in S&P 500 earnings divided by $25 equals 4%, which is the earnings yield. However, unlike the Treasury bond, the index is projected to grow profits by 5% per year for the next 5 years, so your 4% earnings yield will grow by 5% per year. This is a real-life example of the choice investors are grappling with in today's markets. What if interest rates rose to 10%? That means investors could earn 10% a year in bonds instead of 4.5% like in the prior comparison. Is the S&P 500 index still the more attractive investment? In this case, it would take 20 years for the S&P 500 earnings yield to match the 10% interest rate on bonds instead of just 3 years, as was the case with interest rates at 4.5%. A rise in interest rates from 4.5% to 10% would make the S&P 500 much less attractive on a relative basis. Do you now see how changes in interest rates can impact stock prices? The image of a seesaw on the slide captures the relationship between interest rates and the stock market. When interest rates rise, it makes bonds relatively more attractive than stocks, and that can put downward pressure on the stock market. Conversely, when interest rates fall, it makes bonds relatively less attractive than stocks, and that can put upward pressure on the stock market. Do interest rates always cause stocks to move in such an inverse manner? No, not always. That said, interest rates play a big role in determining the level of the stock market, especially over longer periods of time. So, investors should pay close attention to them. Congratulations! You have completed Lesson 7, Part 1.